Oh, fellow Steamians, today we are going to do another GIMP tutorial. This will be part 3. And this one, we're going to go ahead and create like a logo, a text logo, show you how to play with some cool effects with text. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. Make sure you open up GIMP. You want to create a new image. And we're going to make this kind of big actually. We'll go with 800 by 600. It's not huge, but just give us a nice palette to work with. Under advanced options here, if you click that plus, you can select what background color you want to use. In this case, we're just going to go with the transparency so that we can place it, if we wanted to scale it down and place it on our website or something. Or you can place it on top of another image like a cutout. So let's go ahead and create that. And as you can see, it gives you a pre-formatted size for your box. Here's 100% size. If your dimensions go outside of your desktop viewing screen, then it'll actually shrink down your percentage here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to click on the text tool, the A, and let's just start with a kind of a lighter gray color here. We're going to go with C3, C7, CB in hexadecimal code. You can use whatever color you want. I'm going to start with like a lighter silver because we're going to make a pretty cool looking effect here. So we're going to go over some tools. First of all, let's grab a font size we like. It can be anything you want. I'm going to go with something with a little bit of a thicker standard font. I kind of like Trebuchet MS. Let me scroll up. You can download these fonts if you search for them online. You just search for fonts or, unique fonts, whatever, and there's a ton of websites that have these. So if you wanted something that you don't have in this menu already, you can go ahead and download it. We're just going to go with this Malgoon Gothic Bold, I guess. We're going to set our size pretty big. Since we're 800 by 600, we're going to take up most of the screen. We're going to go with, I don't know, we're going to try 180 pixels. Excuse me. Alright, center it. That's your alignment there, your justification. And let's just go ahead and get our text started. Just click anywhere in there and type. I'm just going to start with hello world. Hit enter to drop down another line. Okay. We could probably go a little bigger with that. Try around 200 and see. Next thing I'm going to do, instead of dragging this around with your move tool, I'm going to show you, I think I did this in another video too. If you just click on your alignment tool up here and then click inside your text, you'll see that it gives you these options to move it around. This will center your text left and right, and then this one will center it top and bottom. So we'll go ahead and click that. We're taking up most of the space, so that's kind of what we want. Next thing we're going to do, and this is really plain text right now, but the next thing we want to do is go ahead and right click on your layer, go down to alpha to selection, and that's going to select all of your letters right there. And I think what we're going to do with this, we'll probably go ahead and bring in the border a little bit, the selection, maybe look like it's raised, give it kind of a 3D effect. So we're going to go over shrinking, growing, beveling, possibly, a lot of different options. But first thing we want to do is shrink this. We're going to try to shrink it by 10 and see how much that brings it in. Okay, that's too much. Just edit, undo, Control Z, whatever. We're going to go back down to select shrink. We're gonna try to go maybe 5, about half of that. That's pretty good actually. See how it brought your lines inside here? Let's go ahead and add another color inside it. Actually, instead of a, yeah, let's add another color. Let's add like a black. That's just 6 zeros in the hexadecimal format. And we're going to click on our paint bucket over here to fill it in. Foreground color fill, that's this first one here. And then we're going to go down and fill whole selection instead of similar colors. And that's going to just click in there and it'll fill the whole thing in for you. So now we're kind of getting our basic shape going here. I'm going to go ahead and shrink this by another 1 pixel. Let's go ahead and add a pretty cool effect. This is something neat that it'll give you some nice results. Instead of using our foreground fill this time, we're going to go down to pattern fill. And if you click on this box where you see the pine pattern, you can select what you want to put inside of your fill. Instead of a color, you can choose a pattern. In this case, let's give it like a kind of a, I don't know, like a rocky or a gemmy look. I'm going to try to click this paper one and see what happens. Okay, that's actually pretty cool. But I might not want it to be silver like the outline there. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to go to filters. I'm going to go down, I'm sorry, not filters, colors. I'm going to go down to color balance. Hue and saturation. There we go. Okay, now if we just click masker here, it's going to change all of the colors, not just individually. So I'm going to go in here and just say, play with the hue a little bit, play with the lightness. Okay, since we're using silver, this is only going to change the basically the depth of color. Let's use something with color instead. I know let's just undo the bucket fill. Go back to our bucket. I kind of wing stuff a lot. This is how I learn a lot of the program. I do watch videos and stuff, but I do like to play with different effects when I have some spare time. And you'll find something that you tend to use more often than not. We're just going to go with like this, maybe this blue color here. That's pretty cool, blue web. And let's see what that, okay, that's kind of nice. Let's play with the colors a little bit. Again, this was colors, hue dash saturation. Click on the master. And now if we're going to play with the hue, we're going to notice that the colors change, which is pretty groovy. I might go for like a, I don't know. You notice it's kind of, you can see there's little bubbles or something in there that change as you do this. Let's go with like this kind of a gem color. And we can make it a little darker or break it a little brighter. I like it to be a little bit darker probably. Not too dark though. And then your saturation again, that's your black and white as we discussed in another video. Or it'll be overly bright, kind of stand out. We'll just leave that alone. Okay, so now we got a nice color, nice text, and you notice we haven't gotten rid of our selection area yet, and there's a reason for that. What we want to do is increase our selection. We actually shrunk it by 5, and then we shrunk it by 1 to get this. So we're going to go ahead and grow it by 6. And that's going to give us our border again. Next thing we probably want to do is maybe add a bevel, because that always kind of brings a little depth to your image. It makes it look three-dimensional. So we'll go ahead and add a bevel. And this is, of course, going to give us another layer. If you don't see your window pop up, check the bottom of your taskbar. And since we went in 5 pixels and then 1 pixel, we can do a bevel of 6. And that's how many pixels it will kind of round off there. Select OK. Check your window first. Check your image first. If you don't like it, you can always exit this window instead of undoing it, because you'll still have the old one up here. So let's just bring up our new one again. And I kind of like that. It gives a little bit of a depth. It rounds the corners a little bit. Gives you a little kind of a shadow look. So we're going to go ahead and just exit out, discard our first copy there. And that's a pretty neat effect, but we're not quite done with it yet, because we want to give this a little bit more depth in the middle here, almost give it like a kind of natural shadows. So next thing we want to do is just go ahead and shrink this again, but we're going to shrink it by 6. Okay. Now we can do another bevel here or something like that. We can even do something like emboss it. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like, because that's That's got its own applications, which is kind of nice. But that'll be under Distorts, Emboss, and you can see in the preview window here, it just basically turns it into like a metalish texture. It's my dog barking. So let's go ahead and where were we? Okay, that's right. So what we're going to do from here is go ahead and leave our selection, and we're going to add a layer. But before we do that, I want to increase the size of this layer so it takes up the whole image. Right click on your layer and go down to layer to image size and click that. Now you'll notice that our lines went to the outside of the image. Next thing you want to do is right click it again, your hello world layer, whatever your text is, and select new layer. Make sure transparency is checked, and it's automatically going to detect the size. So click OK, and you can see we've got a new layer in this window, but we can't really see it in this one because there's nothing on it. So what we're going to do this time is grab our paint bucket again, and we're going to fill kind of a shadow look. I'm going to leave black selected. Go ahead and go with foreground color fill the whole selection, and we're just going to click. Now you notice it covered everything up. Don't panic. You got an eyeball here, you can click it to make sure it didn't ruin anything. The next thing we want to do from here is change the opacity. I don't know if we've done this yet, but above the layers, make sure you have the correct one selected, and then you'll have two different options where your mouse cursor changes to either this here, which is like a slider with two arrows, which lets you type in what opacity you want, or you can just push it up a little further and you get like an up arrow. Go ahead and click that, and you can drag your opacity. You see on the image how it's kind of changing the look a little bit. So we're gonna give it a little bit of depth. We're gonna put it about 35. Grab our move tool over here. It's the 4 directional arrows. And what you can do is there's a couple ways to move something, but if you want to move it with precision, you just click on what you want to move, and then just hit your right arrow on your keyboard as many times as you want to move it over, whatever. And as you can see, it's kind of giving us another 3-dimensional look, and at the same time a little bit of a shadow. So it's enhancing the perception of a 3-dimensional object. Now at this point, there's a lot of different things we can do, but let's just take a good look at it. And you'll notice when you move it over, your lines for the edge of your layer move. Just if you want to fix that, right click on that layer to image size, and that'll fix it. Everything's going to stay neat and within the image there. So the next thing we're going to do is just select none. Okay, and that's a pretty cool effect right there. That's just, I don't know, I think it looks pretty cool. We can merge this layer down by right clicking and going to merge down, and now it's actually part of this layer. We cannot edit that anymore. So if you're happy with it, go ahead and do that. If you're not happy with it, don't do that. I wouldn't recommend it. You can make a lot of different objects this way. It's not just for text, so it's a pretty cool effect. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and save it, because now you have your text where you want it. So File, Save As, and this is going to save your project. Anytime you click the Save or Save As, it's saving your project as an XCF file. We're going to call this Hello World Text, and I'm going to make sure I save this in the GIMP Tutorials folder. Alright, and now if you want to see what your text is going to look like, go ahead and File, Export As, and you want to save it as a PNG image, a Portable Networks graphic image. The reason is, if you save it as a JPEG, it's not going to save your transparent background, but a PNG will always keep the transparent background in there. So go ahead and just save that. It's going to inherit the name you just typed for your project, so it's good practice. Just export it. You can play with those checkboxes if you want to. I generally leave them how they are because they work out. So now you want to see what your project looks like. Go ahead and open up your folder that you just saved it to. I should have been prepared and had this open already. There's our Hello World text. Pretty cool. We can actually scale the size inside GIMP or with a lot of like PHP, pre-hypertext processing programs. I can show you how to do that another time too. I used to create custom images in PHP. But now you have your text, your logo, whatever you created. And real quick before we end this video, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to put a nice, pretty cool looking background in there. I'm not sure if I did this in another video or not already, but select your background. And the way to do this without ruining your work here, we're going to save this project as something else. So the first thing we're going to do is change our background. We're going to fill that in with some white, or whatever color you want to do. I think white will look okay. Maybe something that's not going to clash with those colors or be too similar. Maybe we'll go with like a darker grayish blue here. Just dump that in there, fill the whole selection. Okay, and now I'm going to show you, I'm going to save this as a different name. I'm going to add just one at the end of what I just called that. So now we've got two different projects. You can always go back and open up either one. For the background selected, go to filters, go down to render, and then line nova. This is pretty cool. What I'm going to do is set this up for 200 lines. You can set as many lines as you want. It basically fills in a circular motion around the background. Play with the lines, see what you like. I'm going to go with 200 lines, a sharpness of 1 degree, the offset radius of 100, which is how far out it goes from the center, and then a randomness of 30. So it just kind of makes different length lines. Select OK. It's going to take a second depending on your processing power, how many programs you have running. And let me undo that, because what I forgot to do was change the color that we want. So I'm going to swap this. It's a funny word, swap. I'm going to swap this out with black. You can swap it out with white. You can swap it out with green. Whatever color you want. Actually, I'm going to just make it white. Okay. Filters, obviously we can just repeat it since we've already created the process. I make some mistakes, but mistakes are good. Okay, so now we have our line nova, pretty cool background, but we're not done with it yet. Let's go in here and blur it. Let's add a Gaussian blur to it. Nice thing about GIMP is it has these preview windows, so you can get an idea of what it'll look like. We're just going to increase this to like 25, make it crazy blurred. That's pretty cool looking. Select OK. Now you have a pretty decent looking background with all kinds of crazy effects. There's more things you can do with it. You can pixelize it. You can do a lot of different things. But let me just show you what the pixelize looks like. So there, you got a pretty cool looking background, pretty cool looking image. Always save your work. Don't forget, if you want to use something, you have to export it in whatever format you want. We can name this one JPEG since it has a background. Oops, I almost saved over our logo there. Add a 1 to that. Export it. Okay, so now I'm going to pull open our window here and show you we've got two different hello worlds. This is the one we just created. Pretty cool little effect. Again, play with colors, play with whatever you want in the tools and the filters, and come up with some creative designs. No having to download stuff or anything like that. You can create your own neat little images. Alright, well that covers it for this episode. This is part 3 of the GIMP tutorials, and this one was how to create a 3-dimensional logo. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.